Hey, first of all, let me say we have been gone for a minute. So I just want to say happy to be back. Okay, I know the guy at the bottom. Wait a minute, hold up. The guy on my left. Is that my left, my right? I don't know. That's not Will. Will, we miss you. We love you. Will is having car problems. G is filling in. I know, I know. Listen, don't leave. Don't leave. Don't leave. G is not producing. G is not in charge. G is a guest. Do not leave. This other
Oh
guy,
my
this other New York guy, yeah. Chris Williamson, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining the show. First time
thank
guest.
thank you so much. It's an honor and a privilege to be talking to y'all. So I can't wait to get into all the Heat and Knicks content that we should dive into.
All right. So right before we get started, let me just give a shout out to my illustrious producer, Brian M. Brian
Yo,
M is
yo,
back there
yo.
behind the
What's up,
scenes.
guys?
So all right. So let's just dive into it. So I feel like we really just have to we would be remiss if we don't talk about the injuries that are happening just basically with every team in the playoffs and most importantly between the Knicks and the Heat. All right. We know Jimmy missed game 2, Randall missed game 1. We sit at a split. How do you guys think the injuries have affected this series so far? Chris, I'm gonna come to you first since you're a guest in my house.
I appreciate that. So for me, I think the injuries, it's like an even trade-off, right? And we know Jimmy Butler is the Heat's undisputed or undoubtedly best player, and Julius Randle is, 1B for the Knicks. It was an even trade-off. And even though, I feel like the Knicks missed a great opportunity, or in the game one when they didn't have Randle because they had the pieces, they had the wherewithal to take down the Heat, but because of the lack of execution from Tibbs and the team, they fell short. And then when you look on the other side, with the Miami Heat and Jimmy being out, it forced the Heat players and Coach Spo to really adapt and play to their strengths. Not exposing their weaknesses because you got all these undrafted guys who are playing like they're legit starters against a really good Knicks team. So just in short, that's how I feel. I feel like the Heat have done a better job, with the injury situation. Even though they lost in game two, the fact that they were in that game and leading with like 7 minutes, up by six or something, that told me, look, man, this Heat culture, as much as it gets talked about and as annoying as it is sometimes, like, what does that mean? What, like, because I'm not there, it's clear Coach Spo, Pat Riley, and everybody, they have a great system in place where
Mhm.
if somebody goes down, the next man is going to step up tremendously, not just like some average player. They are going to be the real deal.
Mm.
Chris, what's crazy to me is like, I think going into the playoffs, if you would ask Heat fans or people that cover the Heat, is depth a strength for this team? I think they all might unanimously have said no. Because a lot,
Mhm.
as much as the national media likes to praise the litany of undrafted players, a lot of the fan base has gotten really tired of it. They say, we want NBA players. This is
Yep.
nice and cute once in a while. But the fact that everybody on this team is either, Jimmy, Bam, Tyler, or an undrafted guy is a little frustrating. And the fact that and I think you see like guys like that, they are undrafted for a reason, and then with their hard work and obviously Miami's kind of infrastructure, they're able to kind of get chances and improve their game with the coaching staffs and with kind of I want to always give credit to the players who do the work. And you kind of saw how last season they were great, right? They were all really good shooters. They all kind of punched above their weight. And this season, that all fell to earth. And I don't think that happens so much with, really touted, highly talented players. I mean, everybody has their kind of peaks and valleys, but I think with the kind of undrafted guys, you see it a little bit more often. And they hit a big valley all season. And now those guys are playing up to the level that we saw last year. And all of a sudden, they're playing. I think they've played everybody on the roster except for
Mhm.
Nikola Jovic and
Right.
Udonis Haslam. Although I think UD got a couple minutes at the end there in the
Yeah.
Bucks game. But Chris, it's crazy. Like I cannot believe that they're getting productive minutes out of Haywood Highsmith, who I saw on Twitter someone say that's a football name. Eric Spoelstra's winning with football players.
Listen. Let's see. Hayward has been getting a lot of slander, but gee, you need to step up and admit who said in the preseason he would be playing pivotal minutes for this team. Who
Tiff, you
said it?
campaigned. Tiff, you
I,
campaigned. That was you. The movement was all you.
listen, Hamish or bust, Hamish or bust. That's it. That man. Listen, he. I get it. The shot is not where you want it to be. We all agree on that. He could be a better shooter,
Yes.
but he's got some intangibles, and if you can get him out there in spurts, he can give you something. Um, it's
Right. We saw
interesting
that.
though.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, but I want to go back to something Chris said because you said it was an even trade-off with the
I felt
injury.
like I felt like it was an even trade off in the sense that both teams stepped up when they
Hmm.
needed to, depending on who was out, and yeah, that's why I felt like that.
Okay, okay, okay. I get it because at first I thought you were saying the difference between Julius and Jimmy was the even trade-off.
Oh, no, 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 no,
Okay,
no. Yeah, no, yeah.
okay. Because
Jimmy
I was
is the
gonna say
best player.
don't
He is
come
the
on
best
Betty
player.
White's internet.
He's the best
That's
player
Tiff.
in
That's
the
what they
series.
be saying at Penn Station, though.
Oh, oh, so they on 34th Street just talking.
Well, you have to understand the Knicks fans. A lot of them have irrational confidence in their players, even with the guys who they're down on. Because a
Right,
lot of people go hot and cold with Julius, even though he stepped up a lot this year after a horrible a year before. But yeah, they don't. For the most part, they don't think logically. It's like, oh no, we have the better team. We have the best player. I was like, are you watching the same series? Do you know about Jimmy Butler, what he's able to do? Like, it's not like what he did against the Bucks. He's done that before. It's just the fact that they were the eighth seed and they
right,
took down the number one overseed. People
right.
like, oh, it's Jimmy Butler all over again. But yeah, Jimmy buckets. I got no problem saying he's the best player in the series when he's on the floor.
Okay,
Chris,
okay.
it's crazy. Like, so I was one of my good friends is a Knicks fan. He came over to watch the game with me last night, and and as Knicks fans do, I went to game one with another friend that's a Knicks fan, and they all talk spicy until Jimmy does a nod and smile thing, and all of a sudden, all that talk went to he literally said out loud, "Uh oh, I don't like that," and I don't think that there's a player that has ever installed fear in another fan base like this version of Jimmy. And I was there for LeBron. I was there for Shaq and D Wade. There is something about the mythology of Jimmy Butler that I think Bomani Jones said it when he gets going, everyone in the building, road or away, knows what's about to happen. And when
Hmm.
I was in MSG, when he had that little run, when he had the couple leak outs and then like the little baseline jumper, that crowd looked horrified because they were like, "Oh no, it's about to happen and it's done." And then he does that smile thing. And it reminded me of in the finals when he goes, he's before the game talking to I think Rachel Nichols, and he's like kind of swaying back and forth. He's like, "Nah, we're down. I feel good." Comes out, he has that game, goes to LeBron, "You're in trouble." And he was in trouble. And there's just something about the crazy in him that he backs up that everyone's like, "Oh no."
And what's wild to me is there is a Jimmy Butler regular season player, and then there is a different beast, a different creature in the playoffs. And to your point, like when in the Buck series, not to keep going back to the Buck series, but when he was shooting lights out, bringing that team back, all my mind could say was, please, please do not let Jimmy go off. Like whatever you got to do, if you got to tackle him, please, because I just knew when he was going up for a shot, 3-point shot, oh, that's going in. I just knew it. And even in this Knicks series in game one, there is, yeah, like you said, there is a fear about
Hmm.
him that is really remarkable for a guy who had to go to junior college. Then he had to go to Marquette, and they said he wasn't really good. He worked his butt off.
Hmm.
And for him to get to this level where he's a dog in the most important time of the season, it just speaks volumes about his character and his work ethic. And what really scares me, uh, G, is the fact that he was nodding his head after game two after he knew they were going to lose. Like,
It
and
was
then
like
I
that
think he
Cam
did.
Newton gif. You know the
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
He's
And then
putting you on high alert.
yeah, it's like, oh, I don't want to see that because you know something's coming on Saturday. Okay, y'all got one without me. Okay,
I
I'm about
see
to show
y'all.
y'all. I'm about to show you on Saturday, and he
Well,
delivers.
the craziest thing about how he delivers is that, gee, what like regular season, he's like a 20 something percent 3-point shooter, right? He's like, I don't
He's
know,
he's he's
28?
not good. The
No, he's
math
not good.
the math would indicate don't take
Right.
that.
The numbers would say no. Uh,
Streets is saying.
but the streets are saying he's horrible in the regular season. But the postseason, he turns into this incredible 3-point shooter. Um, and I think that's going to be a big part of this series going forward. Um, the Knicks didn't shoot so well from three from game one. Game two, they shot way better from three.
Yep.
And it feels like the whole world is still amazed that all of a sudden the Heat can shoot 3-pointers because they shot horribly. They shot what they were what ranked last.
They
Yeah.
were one of they were in the bottom
Yeah,
5, I believe, in
they're in the
three.
bottom five for 3-point percentage for the regular season. But and it's thing like you knew they had better shooters. At some point, you were hoping the water would find its level, and it seems to be finding it right about now. So I think uh, the question would be: do you think that these teams can keep shooting at this pace from three, or do you think someone levels off first? Excuse me.
I'll say this. I didn't think the Heat were going to be able to shoot the lights out, after that first game against the Bucks. I'm like, that's abnormal. It's an anomaly. They're not going to shoot that well from 3-point land, and they're going to lose probably in five. And then, of course, they kept shooting amazingly. So I don't expect them to level off because I've been wrong about them before, so I'm not going to be wrong again. The Knicks, though, they can go hot and cold because Julius Randle can, throw up a lot of shots from three. RJ Barrett, and there are times when they have cold spells. Um, Jalen Brunson. So I think the Knicks will level off in game three. The Heat, though, again, even like Duncan Robinson, his shot has been off for a while now, but he's coming into his own form, and I think he's maybe due for a big game, and I think that should scare some Knicks fans because
Mhm.
they can't allow the 3-point shot to beat them in this series. That's just going to be a really tough task to handle. And then also, well, I'll let G go before I get into another point because I get a lot to say.
Well, so New York is shooting 29% in the playoffs from three. They're the worst 3-point shooting team in the playoffs, which is pretty interesting. And Miami is the second highest behind Philadelphia. New York was about a middle of the pack team. They were about 35% during the regular season. And Randall is just really not that good a 3-point shooter,
No,
34% for his career, 34% this year. The only good year he had was the one 2 years ago where he shot 40%, which I
right.
believe it was something like 50% on threes on pull-ups, something like
Mm.
ridiculous. That
Aberrate. Yeah.
yeah, totally not sustainable. So, I think for sure, like, I would not be surprised if Miami does remember how to shoot for the rest of the series, but I know New York can't shoot, right? And I think we have enough
Yes.
of a sample. And listen, and they could get hot, they've adjusted nicely. Like I think one of the big things that the Knicks did was, like if Hart's in the corner,
Mhm.
he's not taking those open threes. He's driving to the hoop to force a rotation so that they can kick out for a better shot. And they're getting in their offense quicker so they can do stuff like that. I think Bam's respecting Randall shooting a little too much. If you watch, I was watching some film today, and he's playing very, very high up in
Mhm.
isolation. And I was like, I don't know what we're doing here. And Randall's blowing by him.
I
Like
was gonna
Right.
say he's playing them for the
looking,
drive.
Tiff, he's like getting roasted. And I was like, why are
Yeah,
you standing so close to this man? Well, what are you
yeah.
scared of?
Hey, that's another conversation though with Bam, because I see the discourse in Miami Heat Twitter
Oh
about how
no.
I forget who said it, but they were like, Bam's a really good player. He's just not who I want him to
I
be, and
saw
that's
that
okay.
tweet. I saw
Mhm.
that tweet. Yeah.
What do you make of that? Because I feel like it's not a love hate relationship, but
Mm.
it's just Bam. I want more. Like you got all these tools and potential, but it's just not coming through. And maybe you guys know better than me because I don't watch the Heat as religiously as you guys. But is that a sign like that's just not he's not going to be that guy? Like he doesn't have it in him.
I want him to be Amari Stoudemire on offense.
Oh, you want him to be a Amari Stoudemire,
I don't think
just
I,
less homophobic?
yeah, just like less problematic. Like I
Yeah,
want like non-problematic Amari Stoudemire on offense. I don't even need I don't need as much shooting as Amari gave because Amari was like a really good. I mean, Amari was at one point like the best pick and roll big in the
Mm,
oof,
sport,
he was
along
yeah,
with
sensational.
oh my god. I mean, I know his. I mean, I'm talking about like the Phoenix days, even like
Yes,
just a monster, right? And I think Bam has that size and athletic ability to do that, right? And I
yeah,
think his face-up game, I think of Amari, right? And I think people like to call him like, oh, Idris Garnett when he hits a jump. I was like, no, that's stat. You know what I mean? Like I've seen that game, and
right,
he's more of that build, and he plays
yes.
defense unlike Amari. And I just want him to be more of that, but he's not wired that way. And I think
right.
we've learned. And Tiff, you like they wanted LeBron wired differently forever.
Yep.
Don't
I'll be
rewire
the
guys.
first
They
one to
want
admit.
No,
I'll be the first to admit. I wanted him to be a killer,
yeah.
and
yeah,
that's not who he is.
They did it with Giannis too. They wanted Giannis to shoot threes and do.
yeah,
It reminds me of that old NBA Twitter saying hashtag let Westbrook be Westbrook
yeah.
for
That's
circa
it.
2012. That's like just let these guys be themselves, and it may not be like the idealized version of what we think they can be, and that's okay. They're gonna
Right,
become their own player, and it's fine. Like Kyle Lowry doesn't need to score a lot of points to impact the game. And not that, you want that out of your highest paid player, but I think for sure, he's won championships and there's plenty of guys like him that affect the game in a lot of ways. And I just think that Bam's is not that guy and he'll be it sometimes and not. And
right,
I think that's okay. And we can want a little bit more from him. And I think that's always going to
right,
be a case, but he is who he is. He's very good.
Well, yes, he's very good. But here's the other thing that I saw. So the fact that he has a massive contract, you're expecting him to live up to that contract. So there are certain things that you expect from people who are at the top end of the food chain on your roster, and then the bottom chain or lower on the chain. So I think it is fair to want more from a guy who's getting that type of money. But at the end of the day, if it's not in him, then that's
right.
never gonna materialize.
I just think we
I think
focus
the
too
thing is,
much on contracts, right, Tiff?
well, that's one thing. Because I'm always like, it ain't my money.
No, it's
Um,
not.
so, but G and I we've had this conversation. It's so funny throughout this entire year. I think, like for me, I see Bam as a guy who can give you between 15 to 20.
Yeah,
Should be giving me 10 boards, throw in a couple assists because he can. And I want the stout defense. I think the thing is that like we're still not quite built for Bam to be able to just be that Bam. So we're at a stage where we need more points from him. I think that's the problem. We're not built where he can go out and just play his game and dominate on the defensive end, and then people will be like, "Oh my God, Bam's awesome." It's the problem that, you know, we're lacking a lot of scoring power right now.
This
So
right.
isn't this
Elite
isn't a
scoring power.
team built for him also.
that's what
Like I
I
think
and that's what I just said.
yeah,
We're not built for him.
like it's a Jimmy build. The
It's
team
a
is
Jimmy
Yes.
build.
and it's like a I love Pat Riley. It's not like the best Jimmy build, right? Like they are,
No, we're a
like
hodgepodge.
Yeah.
Jimmy and Bam. Chris, I've talked about this with my former pregame show host Jack Alfonso. I just talked about he's like the biggest Bam guy I know. We talked about it. It's like Jimmy and Bam's an awkward fit. They're both
Yeah.
We
guys that
did.
don't shoot, right?
Yep.
And they both occupy the same parts of the floor, and in a way, they
Hmm.
have kind of redundant games. Even like when Jimmy's a roller and pick and roll, you saw in game one, like Bam standing in a corner. It's like
Yeah.
Right.
you're not really helping there, and they've made it work on defense because
Hmm.
Yes.
defensively is where there's a synergy on defense that I don't think we talk about enough. So on offense, they leave a little bit to be desired. On defense, I don't think there's a defensive pairing in the entire league. I want more. I
Right.
don't know if you guys can come up with one. like maybe Draymond and Wiggins, and even then, I think I still go Jimmy and Bam. But like on defense, their synergy is perfect. On
Right.
offense, there's a little bit that they're leaving on the table, but I think we know if Bam played with like Curry on offense and kind of movement shooters
Hmm.
and like a wing at the four that could shoot, I think you'd see a very different Bam Adebayo.
Right.
Like a lot
Right.
of passing guards and stuff like that, but they just don't have that. So
Right. And
You
also you have to admit a lot of the things that people want, Bam doesn't have the skill set. Like you have to admit, like, they want Bam on the block posting up against
right.
7 footers.
That's yeah.
It,
It's just
that
not
like that shouldn't be happening. Like
not going to end well.
that's not his game. So I think that, like, of course people are looking at the contract because they can't help but to, um, and then they look at other teams and what other guys do. Um, and there's that comparison. Oh, if
Yes.
so and so can do this, why can't Bam do this? Um, and I think the thing about it is that while, like, I hunger for more for Bam, I also know where the limitations lie. And the more for me doesn't need to be 25 points. The more for me can be more rebounds. It can be more assists. It could be better defense. Because sometimes we pay too much attention to the scoring prowess of people. Because as we've seen, 4 undrafted guys just gave the Knicks almost 80 points.
Yeah.
So so we can score. So I think we need to be focusing on Bam's going to have to figure out other ways to just be involved in the game.
Right. If he can
That
have his footprints, yeah, if he can have his footprints on more of the game, not necessarily scoring, but
right,
facilitating, making, creating space for guys, and then being the lockdown defender. We
right.
saw what he did against Giannis in those last couple games, really made it tough for
Mhm.
him to get to the lane and, get his easy baskets that he's used to getting. Then I think you have a more satisfied fan base.
Right.
Um, and I also think, yeah, it kind of maybe it speaks to how we as a society and basketball think we just focus on the scoring a lot of
Mhm.
times instead of basketball's played on both sides. And I don't know how you guys feel about this, but when people bring up, oh, he's a great two-way player, it's like, shouldn't everybody be a really good two-way player or at least decent?
Yeah. But that's the thing. I think that, like, this is also like a weird time in basketball where it's like you can watch basketball and you can handily point out the AAU kids. And you know exactly what I'm saying. So this is where we are in basketball. The kids who are, like, wearing, like, the Air Jordans on the traveling teams, like, you can point out those players. So we're in, like, a weird time where, like, uh nobody's doing suicides anymore. Nobody's doing the drills. Nobody, like, everything is different. And also, like, these kids know if you can shoot like Steph Curry, everything comes with it, the accolades, the commercials, and all these things. But they think Steph just woke up on a Tuesday and he started doing it. They
ask
don't
Jordan,
realize that's like a life's work that he's
ask
putting out there.
ask Jordan Poole.
Yeah.
I knew. I was gonna bring him up,
I had
but
to,
I'm
dog. I
glad you.
had to. I'm telling you, bro, not to get sidetracked. That was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in a pressure situation. It's like that in J.R. Smith. Like that was, I could, like, he put that shot up and I bursted out laughing. That was my, like, natural raw reaction. Shout out to Jordan Poole. We all should love ourselves when Jordan Poole loves himself.
Listen,
I love that. That's probably that's
that's
why he's
Shout
in the
out to the
league.
pool
Yeah.
party.
that's it. But I'm glad you brought up Bam because I want to kind of segue into uh a a, a, a topic, non-topic, the rebounding. Gee, I want you to I want you to talk a little bit about the rebounding deficiencies that the Heat have on their side. The last game, 34-50. And
So
we know Jimmy wasn't there, and Jimmy can, account for rebounds, but let's just kind of look at it as a whole.
So they could not rebound in the zone last night. And the zone started off really successful for Miami, but I thought kind of the Knicks started to figure it out because of the offensive rebounding and because they were kind of doing they were putting Barrett at the wing and not the
Mhm.
corner. So like Barrett was like one pass and then drive between kind of two small guys. So that was kind of breaking the zone down, and then Bam has to shift over Zeller, whoever the big is. They were having issues rebounding in the zone, and I think it was kind of obvious to all of us. And then the game kind of got away from them, and I think Jimmy helps them a lot as a rebounder. I think
He
Jimmy kind of
does.
secures that. It's also the shots that they were getting. It's a lot at the rim,
Mhm.
Chris. It's like I thought the big difference in that game was New York got to the rim. Miami's MO on defense forever has been they may allow a large, like a big percentage at the rim, but they have the fewest attempts at the rim every year. That has been the SPO MO. They are going to help from the weak side corner. They're going to stunt in. They're going to build the wall. They're going to do everything that they can to prevent you from doing that. And Jimmy at the nail is always that first guy to stunt on
Yeah.
any drive. That gives whoever the corner defender is a little bit more time to kind of get in. It gives the guy on the ball a little bit more time to recover. They're playing a drop now, which I think is pretty interesting
Mhm.
with Bam and with their guards, which kind of
Yeah.
discombobulated the Knicks offense because Brunson was trying to get some favorable switches and they would drop Duncan or whoever. And all of a
Right.
sudden, the Knicks, it was really funny. They didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, Tiff, I just think that a lot of it's Jimmy's absence. I think a lot of it's the way they play defense in game two because
Yeah.
Miami actually, and I know you don't believe in numbers, but Miami was actually one of the teams that allowed the fewest offensive rebounds in the league last year, and their defensive rebounding percentage is really good. And that's just not who they are. And I think
Yeah.
when it happens, it looks really bad, but it's not like a thing with them. So I kind of have faith they're gonna probably play Love a little more, play Jimmy. I have faith that they're gonna get that cleaned up.
Do you like the fact that they're playing drop coverage though? Because we know that the Knicks are not, a really elite three point. Well, yeah, they're not even close to elite 3-point shooting team.
I think
When
that's
you look
why,
at
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and that
also
just
the switching kind of hurts your rebounding, Chris, because like and they think when Bam gets switched, so that they'll decoy, right? So they'll like run a switch. If Bam's on Randall, for example, they'll run like a pick and roll with Randall and Brunson or something, right? And then or whatever. They'll get a switch,
right,
they'll get Bam to switch on the guard, and then they just do that to get Bam out of the paint and out of the action, and then they'll run something, and then Bam's just not involved in the play at all. So they kind of it's like when teams wouldn't throw to Darrell Reeves aside in football,
right,
they're just like, we don't want to do this.
Mhm.
right.
And I just think part of this adjustment has been they want to involve him in as many plays as possible, and they don't want to give the Knicks a lifeline, which is offensive rebounding.
No, 100%, 100% agree. And the other thing that I'm interested to see, I guess, on the flip side, is how the Knicks, adjust or cover Jimmy Butler in game two. Because I don't even think here's the thing. In game two, man, they were doubling these guys, but they weren't doubling Jimmy. Last time I checked in game one, or at least not frequently, or just letting him get off. And then down the stretch when he was injured, he's not going to be fully healthy. We know that. If he's like 80%, 85, I think that was great for the Heat fans. But they need to exploit that ankle, and
Mhm.
they didn't do that. Like I don't understand if Tibbs wanted to look out for his former guy, but you have a guy who is standing in the corner on offense, not doing anything because he rolled his ankle. And then on defense, you call him pick and rolls when you have a team that's coached by Eric Spoelstra and high IQ players like Kyle Lowry, like Bam and other guys, they're gonna switch. Like they're not gonna leave their guy out hanging. So I'm really interested to see if Tibbs can get out of his own way or exploit
Mm.
the weaknesses that you see in Miami, specifically with Jimmy's injury, because otherwise you're just giving up extra possessions and you're wasting possessions. Really, if they exploited Jimmy those last 5 minutes of game one, I think they win that game. But for whatever reason, they were like, nah, we're good. We're gonna call a couple pick and rolls. We're gonna, attack other players, and we'll live with that. Yeah,
Chris, so New York doubled Jimmy early, which I thought was interesting that they decided that
Mhm.
they were not going to do the Bucks, and Miami very quickly pivoted to like, okay, and they brought Jimmy off ball, and he was a menace. It was kind of screen and slip. It was run a little pin down for him to cut back door. They did all sorts of. They would run an action on one side. One of the and it was funny because Mitchell Robinson kept falling for this. Like Kyle and Jimmy would run. Jimmy would kind of set up to screen for Kyle on one side, and Caleb would come up from the corner as if he was going to receive the ball to like initiate offense with Zeller.
Mhm.
So Caleb's coming up to receive the ball, and Zeller comes up to screen, and Mitchell's following Zeller to make sure that he's defending the play. And then Kyle just pivots and runs a pick and roll with Jimmy on the other side of the horns. And Jimmy slips. Mitchell's already out there guarding the fake play, and Jimmy's slipping for a dunk. And Spo, I thought coach circles around Tibbs in game one. And I
easily.
want to see how New York's going to respond to
Right.
Jimmy off ball. You can do a couple things. I think that you can switch off ball screens, which I think that gets a little fuzzy for New York, but that's certainly something that you can spring late. I think you can play a little bit of zone to kind of limit
Yep.
that stuff. And I think Miami's shooting, they thrive from kind of inside out ball movement.
Mhm.
I think that those standstill kind of move the ball in the perimeter threes aren't super good for them. I'm not familiar with their game in terms of zone.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a funky option to play. Or, the other thing is to just put Mitchell Robinson on Jimmy. And I talked about that on my show with Nikias Duncan of the Dunker Spot. There's a history of Doc Rivers using Embiid on Jimmy and it being
Mhm.
successful. The Mavs using I always forget his name, that big white guy. Um,
Mm.
their center. No, not yeah, Maxi Kleber.
Yeah.
Uh,
Cleaver. Yeah.
yeah, they
Okay.
they played Maxi Kleber on. I
Pretty
always
good.
forget his name. I don't know why.
I know.
You know
He
why.
escapes me.
You
Uh,
know why.
and there's just a history. The Hawks using Collins on Jimmy in the play-in. There's just a history of kind of putting centers on him and it working. The Lakers doing with Anthony Davis in the finals.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of an option for them. But he shredded every look that they've given.
Right. I mean, I think also like it can be an option for them, but also I feel like Spo would love the opportunity to bring Mitchell Robinson away from the basket.
Yes.
Like I think that's something Spo would just eat up. If you're gonna get this guy away from the basket, then gee, there's your guy Kyle. There's there's all the guards flooding through, and you know whose life it makes way easier? Bam.
Oh yeah.
So I think Spo would just eat that up.
I think so too, but I think when it gets late, like if it gets late game, that becomes
Well, yeah.
something. Yeah, and it's a surprise thing to spring on them. It's not something to run from
Hmm.
tip, but I do
Right.
think now I will say this: that Hawks game, they were not prepared for anything. That was as unprepared as I've ever seen an
Oh,
Arizona
they
team.
looked
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah.
Oh,
That
Yeah.
Chris.
was one game where you could say, what was
No,
going on?
let's
Oh,
be.
I
They
don't
looked
say
The
Spo
horrible
got
the
out
whole
coached often.
game.
He got his ass kicked by Quinn Snyder. Absolutely got his ass kicked.
Gee, tell the truth though. That whole game they look horrible, and
They look
three
unprepared.
quarters, three quarters of the Chicago game,
right.
I
they
didn't
looked
felt that they
bad.
looked unprepared the Chicago game. I
I don't
just
think
thought they
I don't
looked
think
like
they were
they
unprepared.
look
They
like
just didn't.
themselves.
They
I was
just
like,
didn't look.
"Oh, there
Well,
they
which
are."
self? Which
Right.
self?
Yeah.
Well, the
Now you got
self
to figure.
the
Are
self
you
that
talking about the?
existed before game 1 of Milwaukee.
'Cause
I was like, let's see. Well, I really that's how I felt comfortable. I was like, this is who I know. Getting good shots and missing them. It's my
if
comfort zone.
you if you guys had to pick, I like that you started talking adjustments, Chris, because that was my next segment. But if you guys had to pick one player, uh, but you can't pick Jimmy, you can't pick Orange Julius, um, to make an impact in game three, who would you pick?
On either side.
Either side.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna start with the Knicks since I'm in New York. I would say I like to see Quentin Grimes inserted into the starting lineup with his shooting ability. I think he's one of the better shooters on the Knicks, and then also his defense. I know he's still maybe not 100% with that shoulder, but I
Mhm.
feel like he could be a great asset in defending Jimmy. I mean, Jimmy's going to get his points, but if you can make them difficult, that's the other thing. Some of these shots that Jimmy takes are extremely hard, but he's just so locked in and amazing at his craft that the great
Mhm.
defense doesn't phase him. But I think, yeah, Quinn Grimes could have a big role. and I'm gonna cheat. Emmanuel quickly needs to
That
get
was
out
gonna
of
be
his
my
funk.
pick, Chris. That was gonna be my
Mhm.
Okay,
pick.
I'll let you go there. I'll let you go there.
I know. I just think that he hasn't really had an impact in the series yet. And when I was previewing the series, he was a guy that I thought could flip the series for New York because he's the kind of speedy guard that has
Mm,
always given Miami problems. They just don't have a point of attack defender to guard that. And especially if you play quickly and Brunson together, that puts Caleb Martin in a position of okay, which one what does he guard if quickly's playing well? And they don't have the personnel to defend someone like that. I think they've done a good job of. I mean, he's a young player. They've sent late help to kind of be physical with him. They've done all the right things, but I do think that he as Zach Lowe says, he can dictate the terms of engagement, and he can
mm.
kind of make their life hell. So that would have been my pick on New York side because he's yet to have a moment yet.
Yeah, and then on the Heat side, if I had to pick one player, I'm gonna stay. I brought him up earlier. I think Duncan Robinson. He's really been in a bad spot as far as his shooting splits and not knocking down open threes. I know he had a big one late in the game to make it a 3-point game before they eventually lost. Um, but I think it's it's inevitable, right? You're not gonna be shooting horribly this long. At some point, it's going to switch. It's not as if his mechanics are off. His shot looks the same, pretty much to me at least, from when he was in the bubble and all that. So sometimes you just go through slumps. I don't expect him to be shooting horribly in Game 3. I think he comes out and knocks a lot of things down, and then he'll get more minutes. Because at one point, I think during the season they weren't really playing him, right?
No, he
No, he
fell out of
he he
rotation.
wasn't even in the
Yeah, he's out of
rotation.
the rotation. That's why. Yeah, exactly. So it also shows. I mean, I know they've had a lot of injuries, so they kind of forced their hand, but it's also the belief that Coach Spo has had in him and the other players, even if they're not getting prime time minutes, when they
Mhm,
come off the bench or if they're inserted into starting lineup, they're confident, and there isn't a lot of hesitation from what I'm seeing, and I think that could be something that spells trouble for the Knicks.
I haven't liked
What?
his shots, Tiff
No,
Duncan.
you know what? I haven't either, but if I say that, you know, nobody's
They
gonna
call
take it
you a
serious.
hater.
They're gonna call me a hater if I say that. I haven't liked his shot selection. I actually haven't liked,
I don't think it's his
uh
fault though. I think they're doing the
no,
max thing where they put him in tough spots.
yeah, yeah, and he's just having to get them up, and he's having to get them up quick. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, it's all hands on deck for the Heat. That's just where I'm looking at it at this point. The fact that neither one of you said Max,
Well, I was gonna say
but
Kyle. My guy on the Heat would have been Kyle.
mm, mm,
Kyle, it would have
was
been Kyle. It would have been Kyle or Max because I think Caleb's kind of played well, but I think you
yeah,
saw
Caleb's played well.
yeah,
Struess as a pick and roll creator made a comeback
Yo,
yesterday, and I was like, "Oh baby, I haven't seen this since like game
was
45."
I was in the living room dancing. I was feeling
He's
good about myself.
they're
he
doing a
opens
chop
up
Uh,
the
chop.
lane for
He
because
does.
like he comes off the DHO, and teams respect his shooting, and he has that angle. And if he gets
mhm,
a big to step up, he's a very good finisher.
yeah,
He's like he's sneaky athletic
he's sneaky athletic.
as they like to
Yeah.
say. And he can finish. He's like not a bad little passer. Like he can throw like that little dump off pass to Bam if the big kind of steps up. So he's obviously like a guy that, and they got a game out of him. But Kyle's the guy to me. They need in Hero's absence, they're gonna need kind
Mhm,
of a very Caleb's really stepped up. I think Caleb and
yeah,
Kyle have
Yeah.
like super stepped up in that role. But
yeah,
I think if you get I think Kyle's done everything except for score the ball consistently this playoff run.
Right.
He's done everything else exceptionally. But they can get a little bit more scoring punch out of him, and he's been aggressive. He's
mhm,
coming off pull ups on the break. He's coming off the handoff, shooting. And I think that's huge for them because he opens up that dimension for Bam. I think more than anybody else because of how he can leverage kind of the defender off the screen because he's the best passer on the team. He's one of the best passers on the team. He's been a little off target this season, but he's so skilled and smart that you kind of want. He does that thing where he had a 3 in game 1 where he comes off the screen from Bam. Bam kind of rolls and Kyle ducks behind him again, and like it's almost like a child navigating a mall where it's like kind of going through the leg of adults and then just ends up open, and the defender's like, where did he go? And it's in, and he just does dumb stuff like that just opens the game
Yeah.
up in funny ways. So
He d- he does a lot of things. Some of them
he does a lot of things.
He does
he
a
does a
lot of
lot of things.
that's gonna
Some
be
of
the
them,
new tagline for Kyle. He does a lot of things.
Some good,
some
some
of
bad,
them,
bad things.
So,
some of them I do not like at all. But that's part of the game with the flopping. But it just speaks to the I guess
he's a
again
grifter.
the yeah.
Oh, peak.
But he's extremely smart. As much
Yes.
and as much as I hate it, same thing with Chris Paul. People call him like he's a cop because
He is
he's
a cop,
snitching
though.
on
He is
other players.
the untucked
Uh,
jersey, Chris. Come on.
right, the untucked jersey, everything. Uh, but yeah, they know how the game is played. They know how the officiating is going to be, and they use that to their advantage. Because for the longest, I couldn't figure out why are they calling why are they calling fouls on flops, but the coaches teach them. Like even from AAU, they teach players to flop because they know the refs
Yep.
are going to call it. Even though they try to get rid of it with the new rule this season, I feel like in the playoffs they let it go more than in the
Mhm.
regular season, at least early on. Um, but hey, he's taking advantage of the rules that are given to him. And even though I wish he didn't do that, it it's smart. It's a smart tactic. Don't like it, but and did y'all think
Chris, just
Josh?
say it. He's an asshole on the court.
Right.
I'm trying to be nice.
He plays. I'll say it. He's my favorite player. He plays like an asshole, and
Yes.
they need it. They need it.
Yeah. Yeah. They
Yeah,
need
you
it.
need that. They got that's
You need a guy. Every team needs a guy. It's as the Celtics have Marcus Smart. Everybody has the guy that plays like an asshole. No one else is gonna like them but you. But you need it.
yeah,
You need it.
you definitely do. UD when he played, I mean, I
Oh
know he would
man,
get up in Bobby Portis's face in the Buck series. Little enforcer, but yeah.
I have UD in that fight. I don't know about you, Chris, but
Oh,
I
oh,
take
I
I take
think that
UD with gray in his beard any day. That's old man strength.
okay. Hey, look, man, Bobby Portis punched a guy in the face and
Yep.
Knocked
broke
him
his
all the
jaw.
way back to Europe.
Listen, Bobby punched the guy in the face, and that guy got traded. Draymond Green punched the guy in the face, and that guy had to go to work together the next day.
Right?
They are
I
not
gotta
the same.
I gotta look at this man every day.
Right. You punched me and I didn't get my lick back.
Exactly. I'm
he didn't get his
still
lick
trying
back.
to get my lick back.
Right.
That man got sent to Milwaukee after that. They sent that man in division.
That man left. That man took his
He's like,
passport and said, "I'm going home."
he's like, I'm gone. I'm good. I think it's something about though Bobby Portis's eyes and how much fear it gives me. Like
Oh,
those
yeah.
crazy.
He hasn't
But
won since the Obama administration.
The best. What is the crowd? Gee, what did the crowd sound like?
Bobby,
Bobby. You didn't hear that? It's so creepy.
Those
It
people
was
love
so
that guy.
creepy.
That's like
Yeah.
it
What
was
was his
called
stat line? 000, and they were just like Bobby.
He was
He
like the
did
Tony Snell
nothing.
meme. He was like that
Yes.
Tony Snell meme.
oh,
He did nothing, and they were cheering for him. That's the craziest thing. And of course, we laughed.
of course, because y'all
Yes,
y'all won, right? I don't think you'd be
exactly.
laughing if they ended up beating y'all, but
No way, no.
Okay, but that's in the past. We won.
it is.
Why you gotta bring
I'm
up something
still,
that didn't happen?
Right. Why you gotta make
it
up
make
old
it
stuff?
make it makes me feel better knowing that maybe there would be a chance for revisionist history, but it's never gonna change. The Bucks
So
collapsed.
so I had this for Will because Will was supposed to be on. I feel like I know your stance on it, but just something I'm gonna start asking people when they come on.
Do you want me to
Just
answer like I'm Will Manso?
no,
Okay.
please don't. Will never come on.
Love you, Will.
It's fan or fanatic. And it's basically because, gee, I know you engage on Twitter heavily. Chris, I know you engage on Twitter,
Yeah.
but I want to kind of, if we can kind of briefly talk about how you engage on Twitter and you find like the positive interactions amidst all the toxic energy.
You want? I'll go and I'll let
Yeah,
Chris
you go first.
go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get a little personal with mine. I mean, Tiff. I
Yeah.
mean, we're good friends.
Yep.
I mean, I went to Christian Hernandez's wedding, who I met on Twitter, who contributes to Heatbeat. I went to Alf's baby shower. We've been on the phone for all my friends here. I've been all over the world because of friends I made on Twitter. Been to Italy, been to Scotland, Japan, all sorts of places that I never thought I would. The stupid bird app helped
Hmm.
foster a community that made me a lot of friends, and you know, through all the ridiculousness, it's hilarious because you find stuff making fun of Jordan Poole when he hits a shot, and you're just like, man, that was so funny. Tonight was so worth it. And on the other end, you build community, and I think that
Hmm.
so much of life is about finding those communities, and we're never alone. As alone as we may feel sometimes, we're never alone. And even if it's just a stupid thing in our pocket that we open and flip open and get to talk to somebody, I think that matters. When I went to the Knick game, the guys in front of me, they were all Heat fans, and they turned around and they were really excited to meet me. They were like, oh my god, I love the pod. I found you on Twitter, and it really got us through the pandemic. As New Yorkers, I know, Tiff, you know how hard that was up
Hmm.
there, and stuff like that, man. Like, that's all made on this stupid bird app. This was a community foster on that. So as much as it could be toxic and it could be so denigrating to our everyday lives, how much we stare at this screen, how bad it can make us feel, how we can engage in so much negativity on it. There's so much positive that we can take out, and it's not for everybody. So it's not
Right.
to say like, well, if you got to use it the right way. Like, it's not for everybody, but I've been very fortunate to kind of get that out of it. So that's kind of the balance I have.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way, like G. So I really appreciate individuals who have different perspectives than I do, but do it in a respectful and fun way where you're learning. And even though you may not agree at the end of the day, you can see where that person is coming from. And, he brought up the community. I've gained so
Hmm.
many, virtual friends that have, become real friends in person that I meet. And it's really a breath of fresh air because you do realize that there are people who are like-minded in terms of their approach to the industry, and you have to be really grateful and appreciative of that because of the ridiculous amount of toxicity on that app, to the point where I will mute anybody, or I don't have notifications on for anybody that I don't follow, um, or they don't follow me. Like, I'm just not, because it messes with your head.
Hmm.
But if I see somebody say something that I don't follow, and it's a good response, and they don't have an Avi that doesn't show their face, I'm like, okay, I'll respond. But if it's saying some out of pockets things, and they don't have an Avi, and they're just trying to rile you up,
Right.
I ignore it, or I don't even see it anymore. It's like they're people talking to themselves,
Hmm.
and it's like, maybe I'm not listening to this. I'm not hearing this. You can reply to all my tweets. I'm never going to look at them unless I'm freaking bored and I want to go downwards in my life. So yeah, I think appreciate not getting too high or too low, as cliche as that sounds, is really important, or else you'll go insane.
Yeah. All right. I appreciate you guys sharing that. I think that's just something I kind of want to go forward with. Um, and just because, just so people know, you can find a sense of community anywhere. You know, um, we, like G said, we're never alone. You're always a finger touch away from somebody. And we got to realize that. We got to realize that. Check on your brother, check on your sister, because we all we got.
We're all we got.
For real.
And with that, I want to show you guys one thing, and we're gonna get out of here. Brian, you got that video? Look closely. You know what that's called? A foul.
On offensive foul,
For
Nope.
defense.
A defensive foul. And you know who that's on? Julius Randle.
Wait. No. That was
Yes. Yes.
They
no.
called
That's the
that on
offense.
Randall.
They
They call that Randall.
No, they called
No.
that
They
on
called it on
Kyle.
they
Lowry.
called it
They
on
called that on
Kyle.
Kyle. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they
Yes,
called it
they
on
did.
Kyle.
Yes, they did. And look at that elbow to the face and down and down.
What they did to my man?
Look at that. Gee, look at your man.
He
Was he
fell
hooking
on
him
him.
though? What
Look at him.
was he hooking though? Was he hooking that up? I
No.
don't know.
How? Look at
Look,
that.
look at his up right. Do you
He
see
how? He's not hooking. He concussed
that
at that
angle?
point.
No, Chris, I saw the other angle. I'm not a ref guy. I didn't. We our post game. I didn't want to do the Scott Foster show. That was that. I don't blame the ref for not seeing if a ball touched the rim or not. That's hard. I thought that was the call that I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, that looked pretty bizarre to me.
That's a reputation call against Kyle, 100%.
Of course it is.
Oh,
Of
yeah.
course it is.
Yeah,
Of
Scott
course.
Foster
you're
got
right.
sick of Kyle shit, just like he gets
Yep.
sick of Chris Paul shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. It is.
Oh my
But
gosh.
with that, I'll end it as I always end it. You are seen, you are heard, you are loved. Thank you guys for coming on. Chris, tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, so they can find me at cwilliamson44 on Twitter, cwilliamsontv9 on Instagram, and that's where you'll get all my takes and insights about sports and other topics. So yeah, go ahead and hit the follow button when you're ever on those apps.
G.
You said y'all know where you can follow me. If you're not following me at this point, then you just don't want to. Follow my other account at Subtitled Anime. I tweet about anime and I tweet about my my esports career. That listen, I won a couple games at my local the other day. How about you follow me over there? So check me out.
All right.
I do YouTube stuff. I play Super Smash Melee, Chris. I'm 30 and I'm getting back. I'm getting back on the horse. It's
Okay.
fun. Listen, it's fun to compete. I love competing. I love trying to get better at stuff. I love meeting new people. Locally, it's fun. But yeah, check me out over there. I do. I'm actually gonna start the YouTube channel up again. So my basketball stuff. Come check out my other stuff that's more for the fun.
All right. I want to say thank you to Brian, my producer. And if you're watching this on Twitch, if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to it, hey, drop us a like, do whatever you need to do. We'll be back at some point. Brian, take us out.
I make beats in bed and I don't need nobody else. I make beats in bed and I don't need nobody's help. I don't need your fancy studio, I'll do this shit myself.